When I moved into apartment 5D, the first thing the landlord told me was, "Don't open the door after 3 a.m." He said it casually, almost like a joke, the kind of warning landlords sometimes make when they want to sound mysterious. I laughed and asked why. He shrugged. Old building. Weird neighbors. That was it. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. The building itself was old, but not in a creepy way. Just the usual cracked walls, narrow hallways, and elevators that groaned every time they moved. The rent was cheap, the location was good, and I needed a place fast. So I signed the lease and moved in. For the first few nights, everything was normal. Too normal, actually. The hallway outside my apartment was always quiet. I never saw neighbors. The only sound at night was the distant hum of the elevator cables running through the walls. Then, on the 5th night, I heard the knock. 3 knocks. Not loud. Just slow, deliberate taps on my apartment door. It woke me instantly. I rolled over and checked my phone. 3:07 a.m. I sat there for a moment, waiting for another knock. Nothing. At first I thought I imagined it. But when I got up and walked to the door, I could feel something strange in the air, like someone had just been standing there seconds ago. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. No movement. No sound. I opened the door. Still nothing. Just the dim hallway light and the long stretch of carpet leading toward the elevator. I figured it was a drunk neighbor who knocked on the wrong door. So I went back to bed. The next night it happened again. 3:07 a.m. 3 slow knocks. This time I was already awake. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole immediately. The hallway was empty, but the elevator light at the end of the corridor flickered. I waited. Nothing moved. I opened the door again. No one. That was when I noticed something strange. The hallway camera mounted near the elevator was pointed directly toward my apartment. I could see the small red recording light blinking. So if someone had knocked, the camera would have seen them. The next morning, I asked the building manager if I could check the security footage. He looked annoyed, but eventually pulled up the recording. We skipped to 3:07 a.m. The hallway appeared on the screen. Empty. My door sat perfectly still. No one walked down the hall. No one came out of the elevator. And then, at exactly 3:07, something strange happened. My door shook slightly. Not like someone was pushing it, more like something had knocked from the other side. The manager rewound the clip, played it again. Same thing. The hallway remained empty, but the door moved. 3 times, like someone was knocking, from the inside. I stopped sleeping after that. Every night I stayed awake, sitting in my living room with the lights off, waiting for 3:07. On the 7th night, the knocks came again. 3 slow taps. But this time, they didn't come from the hallway side of the door. They came from inside the walls, right beside the doorframe. I froze. Then the knocking moved. Tap, tap, tap. Slowly sliding through the wall beside the door, like someone was dragging their knuckles along the inside of the building. The sound stopped exactly where the door hinges were. Then something whispered. Wrong side. I jumped back so hard I nearly fell over. The voice was faint, dry, like someone speaking through a long pipe. I ran to the door and opened it. The hallway was empty again. But this time, something was different. The elevator at the end of the corridor was open. The inside light was on, and the hallway camera was pointing directly at me. Not toward the hall like before. At me. The next day I checked the footage again. This time something appeared on the video. At 3:06 a.m., 1 minute before the knocking, the elevator doors opened by themselves. But no one stepped out. Instead, something moved inside the elevator. Something tall. Too tall. The camera angle only showed its legs. They were thin and bent backward slightly, like the knees faced the wrong direction. The thing stood there for several seconds. Then it stepped out of the elevator. But when it left the camera frame, it disappeared. The hallway remained empty. At 3:07 a.m., my door moved again. 3 knocks. Exactly the same. I asked the manager if anyone else had complained about the knocking. He stared at me for a long time. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You're in 5D, right?" I nodded. He sighed. "Everyone who lives in 5D hears the knocking eventually." He showed me old maintenance records. Apparently, the apartment had been vacant multiple times over the last 10 years. Tenants kept leaving suddenly. Most of them reported the same thing. Knocking at 3:07 a.m. No one in the hallway. But the camera showing something standing in the elevator. Always too tall. Always facing the wrong direction. One tenant even wrote something strange in the maintenance log before moving out. Just one sentence. "It thinks the door opens the other way." I didn't understand what that meant until the 12th night. That night, the knocking didn't stop after 3 taps. It kept going. Slow, persistent, like someone testing the door. Tap, 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 then scratching. Long, dragging scratches along the wood. I backed away slowly. The scratches moved upward until they reached the peephole. Then the knocking stopped, and something blocked the peephole from the outside. A dark shape filled the lens, but I could still see part of it. A face. Except the face was upside down. The eyes were where the mouth should be, the mouth where the forehead should be, and it was smiling. A voice came through the door, clear this time. "You opened it before." My throat went dry. "I saw you." The door handle began to move slowly, not turning, just shaking, testing. Then the voice whispered, "Next time, I knock from the right side." The police came the next morning. They checked the door, the hallway, the elevator. Everything looked normal. Until one officer looked closely at the inside of my door. There were marks. 3 deep dents. Exactly where the knocks had been. But the dents weren't on the outside. They were on the inside of the door. Like something had been knocking from inside my apartment, trying to get out. I moved out that same day, packed everything I could and left. I didn't even go back for the rest of my things. For weeks, nothing happened. No knocking, no strange sounds, no elevators opening in empty hallways. Then last night, something strange happened. I woke up suddenly at 3:07 a.m. 3 slow knocks echoed through my new apartment. Not from the front door, from the bedroom closet. I sat up slowly. The closet door creaked open by itself. And from inside the darkness, a familiar voice whispered, "Finally." Then it knocked again, from the other side of the closet wall. 3 times. Slow. Patient. Like it had finally figured out which way the door opens. I didn't open the closet. I couldn't. I just sat there on the edge of the bed, staring into the dark space between the hanging coats. The knocking stopped after the 3rd tap. But something inside the closet was still moving. Not loudly. Just a slow, shifting sound. Like someone adjusting their weight in a cramped space. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam slid across the closet floor. Shoes, a suitcase, 2 jackets hanging from the rail. Nothing else. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then the phone vibrated in my hand. A notification. From the security app connected to the hallway camera in my old apartment building. I had forgotten to uninstall it when I moved out. The notification said, "Motion detected. Elevator camera." My stomach dropped. I opened the app. The screen showed the familiar hallway outside apartment 5D. The camera angle hadn't changed. The same dim lights. The same long stretch of carpet. And the elevator doors slowly opening. My heart started pounding. Because this time, someone stepped out. At least I think it did. The camera only caught the upper half of the figure. It had to bend down slightly just to fit through the elevator doorway. Its arms were too long, thin, and they hung lower than a normal person's knees. The figure turned slowly toward the camera. But it didn't walk down the hallway. It just stood there, watching the door to apartment 5D. The time in the corner of the screen changed, 3:07 a.m., then the video feed cut to static. My phone screen went black. At the same moment, the closet door behind me creaked open another inch. I didn't move. The voice came again. Closer now. "You left too early." The words slid out slowly, like they were being pushed through a throat that wasn't used to speaking. I forced myself to stand up. The flashlight beam shook as I aimed it back into the closet. Still nothing. Just darkness. Then the knocking came again. But this time it wasn't from inside the closet. It was from the wall behind it. 3 slow knocks. Exactly the same rhythm as before. The wall vibrated under the sound. Tap, tap, tap. And then I understood something that made my chest feel cold. The closet wasn't the door. The wall behind it was. The thing knocking had followed me, and it was trying to figure out where the new door was. I grabbed my phone and backed away slowly. "Stay there," I whispered. I don't know why I said that. Maybe because some part of my brain believed the thing might actually listen. For a few seconds, everything was quiet. Then the wall made a soft cracking sound. A thin line appeared in the paint, like something pressing from the other side. The crack widened slowly. Dry plaster dust fell onto the closet floor. Something pushed again. The wall bulged inward, and a shape formed beneath the paint. 5 long finger marks, pressing outward, testing the surface. Then the voice spoke again. "You opened the other one." My throat tightened. "That means I can come through this one." The fingers pressed harder. The drywall began to tear. I didn't wait to see the rest. I ran. Out of the bedroom, out of the apartment, barefoot down the hallway. The elevator took too long, so I ran down the stairs. 3 flights. 4. My lungs burned by the time I reached the street. I stood outside for a long time, staring up at the building. Nothing moved. No lights flickered. Everything looked normal. Eventually, I went back upstairs. I told myself I had imagined it. Stress. Lack of sleep. The brain does strange things when it's tired. But when I opened my apartment door again, something inside felt different. The air was colder, and the bedroom door was open. I walked slowly down the hallway. The closet door was wide open now. The wall behind it looked normal again. No crack, no fingerprints, no broken drywall, just plain white paint. For a moment I thought I had lost my mind. Then I noticed something on the floor. 3 small dents in the wood. Exactly where the knocks had been. But they weren't fresh. The wood around them was old. Worn smooth. Like the dents had been there for years. And then I heard something from inside the wall. Movement. Slow. Heavy. Sliding away through the structure of the building. Not toward my apartment. Toward the hallway. Toward the front door. I turned slowly. At the far end of the apartment, my front door handle moved. Just slightly. Testing. The door didn't open. But the handle shook again. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then the knocking started again. But this time it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside the door. 3 slow taps. From the wrong side. The voice whispered softly through the wood. I know which way it opens now. Then everything went silent. I stood there for nearly 10 minutes before I dared to move. Finally, I stepped closer to the door. The hallway beyond it looked empty through the peephole. But something was wrong. The hallway camera near the elevator had turned again. Not toward the corridor. Not toward the elevator. It was pointed directly at my apartment door, like it was waiting. And when I checked my phone, there was another notification from the security camera. New device connected. I opened the app. The live feed appeared instantly, but this time it wasn't showing the hallway. The camera was inside the elevator, pointing toward the doors. And someone was already standing inside, tall, thin, waiting, facing the wrong direction. The timestamp changed. 3:06 a.m., and the elevator began moving toward my floor. I stared at the screen of my phone while standing in the middle of my apartment. The elevator camera showed the interior of the elevator clearly. The light above it flickered softly, and the thing inside was still standing there, facing the wrong direction. Its back was toward the elevator doors, but its head was turned just enough that I could see one eye in the reflection of the metal wall. The timestamp changed again. 3:06:21. The elevator stopped. My floor. The doors slid open slowly, but the thing didn't move. For several seconds, it just stood there inside the elevator, perfectly still. Then its head turned. Slowly, too slowly. The rest of its body stayed facing backward, but the head twisted around until it was looking straight at the camera, at me, and it smiled. The screen filled with static. My phone went black again. At the exact same moment, the knocking began. 3 taps from the front door. But I knew something was wrong immediately. The knocks were too quiet, too close. Like they were happening on the inside of the door again. Tap, tap, tap. Then the voice whispered through the wood. You moved the door. I felt my legs shaking. I had to find it again. The handle began to turn slowly, but it stopped halfway, like something was blocking it. I suddenly remembered the chain lock. When I came back upstairs earlier, I must have locked it out of habit. The voice sighed softly. Almost. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then something dragged slowly across the outside of the door. A long scratching sound, like nails sliding down the wood. They stopped exactly where the peephole was, the dark circle filled with something, an eye, except the eye wasn't in the center of the face. It was too high, like the whole head was tilted sideways. The eye blinked. Then the voice spoke again. You're still on the wrong side. The door shook violently. The chain stretched tight with a loud metallic crack. I stumbled backward. Something slammed against the door from the hallway. Once, twice, 3 times. Each impact harder than the last. The chain snapped. The door burst open. I ran. I didn't look back. I ran out of the apartment, down the hallway toward the stairwell. But when I reached the end of the corridor, the elevator doors were already open, and the thing was standing there, waiting. Tall, thin. Its arms hung too low, and its head bent sideways at a horrible angle. The face looked almost human, but the eyes were wrong. Too wide, too empty. And the smile stretched too far across its cheeks. It stepped out of the elevator. Slow. Deliberate. I turned and ran the other direction, toward the emergency stairs. The stairwell door slammed open and I fell inside. I took the steps 3 at a time, nearly tripping as I rushed downward. 4th floor. 3rd floor. 2nd floor. When I finally burst outside into the street, I didn't stop running until I reached the next block. Only then did I dare to look back at the building. The hallway lights on the 5th floor flickered, and for a moment, I saw something standing in the window of my apartment, watching me. I didn't go back. Not that night. Not the next day either. I stayed in a motel across town and called the building manager. When he answered, I told him everything. There was a long silence on the line. Finally, he said something that made my stomach drop. "You opened the door, didn't you?" "I didn't mean to," I said. Another long silence. Then he sighed. "That's the problem." "What do you mean?" He spoke slowly, like someone explaining rules that should never have been broken. "It knocks because it thinks the door belongs to it. And when someone opens it..." My chest tightened. "What happens?" He answered quietly. "It learns." I hung up the phone. That night, I decided I wasn't going back to the building. I canceled the lease, left most of my belongings behind. I moved to another city 2 days later. For a while, everything was quiet again. No knocking, no strange cameras, no elevators opening in empty hallways. I almost convinced myself it was over. Until last night. I woke up suddenly at 3:07 a.m. The room was silent. Too silent. Then I heard something from the hallway outside my new apartment. Footsteps. Slow, dragging footsteps. They stopped right outside my door. My heart started pounding. I stared at the door, waiting. Then came the sound I hoped I would never hear again. 3 slow knocks. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. For nearly a minute, there was nothing. Then a voice whispered softly through the door. Calm, patient, almost pleased. "You keep changing the doors." My blood ran cold. The voice continued. "But I always find them." I heard something slide across the door. Then a quiet metallic click, like someone testing the handle. And finally the voice said one last thing. Something that made me realize the knocking will never stop. Because now it knows where I live. And it knows which way the door opens. See you tomorrow at 3:07.